Hello, I'm back reviewing the 12 Kingdoms Sea of the Wind. This one, I mentioned that it's technically book 2, but it takes place before book 1, like a couple years, I think, where it sort of tells the story of Taiki, the kirin of Tai, who in the timeline with Yoko has been missing for a little while. And this story kind of tells of him like before he disappears again, because like this book basically starts off where his egg fruit is on Mount Hosan, which is the mountain where the kirin are born and raised until they're able to choose a king and then move to their country. And it wasn't long after he appears on Hosan that Soko appears, and he ends up being taken to Japan, and so he ended up being missing for about 10 years at that point. Like, no one could find him. They'll assume that they're never gonna be able to find him, or he's gone, and then a new Kirin's gonna be born. But then 10 years later, Anki, who we find out enjoys going back and forth between the 12 Kingdoms and Japan, he ends up fighting Taiki because kirin can like sense each other. They get the kirin of Renri to help like bring him back safely, because it's just like this magical bracelet that is able to connect to two worlds without like any danger coming to them. And so Taiki's Nyokai, they call them like Lamia in the book, but her name is Sansi. She is like, she allows to like, she's able to like bring him back, and like the story kind of like unfolds from there. And so like this book is a lot shorter. I don't know about the other books, but this one and then book 3, which is about like Anki and 500 years in the past, are like the shortest ones. Since it's a lot shorter, there's not like, we don't get like too many events in it. I mean, a lot of stuff happens, but they're a lot like shorter compared to like books 1 and 2, where it's a lot like quicker pace. There's not that many like fight scenes compared to books 1 and 4. Like, there's like 2 of them, but given the nature of the kirin, who don't like blood or anything, they don't do any of the fighting. The entire book is like Taiki trying to figure out what it means to be a kirin and trying to unlock his powers, because all of the kirin have powers, and for some reason he's unable to like use most of them. Like, he has the power to like understand any language, but that's about it. Like, he can't like shift into his kirin form. He can't really like tame demons. It doesn't seem like he's able to like open the portal between the two worlds like kirin can. And I think it's because he's been in Japan for so long that his powers are bound for some reason. And so a lot of the book is him trying to like get them back, and also trying to like choose the next king of Tai, because they had been with our ruler for about 10 years, maybe like 11 roughly. Generally, like, a lot of this book is kind of like people being worried that he's not gonna be able to like choose a king, and what's gonna happen, especially because he's so young. And it wasn't long after he comes back that like the kirin flags end up coming up to tell the people of Tai that the kirin's back, and they all start like flooding to Mount Hosan. So I'm kind of wondering if they were able to like stall that, like the oracles on Hosan, because the entire mountain of Hosan's populated by like priestesses, and it's run by a woman named Lady Gyokyo. So I'm wondering if they had the power to like delay that at least until like the next time the gates open up, so that Taiki has more time to like train and at least get like one demon. But now it's like as soon as they came back, they all said the kirin's back and they all start coming there. So were they unable to do that? Or even if they tried, would it work? No, so this book doesn't give any answers as to why they disappear later on, because well, he vanished the first time and then he comes back, and then this book ends before they vanish again. Because by the time Yoko shows up, they've been gone for like a while. Like, I don't think they say how many years they've been gone, but it's at least been like a couple, because they like the demons have like overtaken the kingdom by the time book 4 comes around and people are trying to help the refugees. And I don't think Enki says how long they've been gone when they were talking about it. And the book doesn't really give information about that. Like, the closest thing is when they do go back to Tai, Lord Gyosho, who's the guy that Taiki chooses to be king, he had to do a lot of like reworking of the kingdom and trying to change a lot, and maybe people didn't like it, but that's about it. Like, they don't give any names of the people who work there, or like really like anybody who might want to like hurt them. Okay, the book sort of ends with Taiki like finally coming to terms with everything and like finally understanding himself, but that's about it. Yeah, and like none of the other characters outside of like Tai know what happened. So we get one of the other characters named Lady Risai, who's one of the generals in the country. She had come to Hosan to try and see if she would become the queen, and she doesn't show up in any of the other books, and she was like the only other person except for like Gyosho from Tai, who's close to Taiki and Gyosho, who would know what happened, but like no one ever talks about her. I don't think anybody even knows who she is in the other countries, unless they would like just like know of her name because she's a famous general. Yeah, she never shows up. I know she shows up in the little books, but in the folder published that I have, they don't mention her by name at all. Well, the third one is like so long ago that like it makes sense, but like the books 1 and 4, they don't talk about her at all. Yeah, and like I mentioned that because this book is a lot shorter, it feels like they don't spend that much time together, even though it's been a while. Like, at least compared to like books 1 and 4, it feels like there's not a lot of page time with the relationships. Like with Taiki spending time with the priestesses, they call them like oracles in the translation. Like, he shows up and then, you know, like he gets introduced to what's going on about, they tell him like who he really is. And then it kind of like, then he wakes up that like the next day after he comes back talking with Yoga, who's one of the priestesses, who's like the main one, like assigned to him to like tend to him. She talks to him, and then it cuts over to like a couple of weeks later maybe, and it's like they're already really good friends with Taiki, and they've apparently been spending a lot of time together, even though we don't see any of that. Like, it just felt a bit jarring because they all talk about how they're so fond of Taiki, but it's like he gets there for like a day, and then it cuts off to saying about how they're so fond of him, and it's been like, I don't know, like a month or two since then, and there's like nothing in between of the why of like them having like a breakfast together, because they mention that they eat together a lot. Like, at least with book 1, when they talk about Rakushun and Yoga being friends by the end, they at least had some more scenes that would like show them being friends, or like why they would be friends. Like, when she first meets Rokusun, she didn't trust him, but they had a few scenes together of them like talking like, at least on page that were not just like told about. And so when she eventually realizes that she likes him, it kind of makes sense because we see them talking together a lot, and then they get back together towards like the later half of the book, and then they spend more time together, and so it's like them being friends. So so it's like uh, us being told that they're friends, especially in book four, even though they don't spend too much time together in book four, makes sense because we see them spend a lot of time together in book one. Well, I mean, like after this, he does spend more time with them on page. Like he mostly spends time with Yoka and Teye, who are like the two like named oracles. Lady Gyokyo doesn't spend too much time on page, because it's mentioned she like kind of like disappears a lot and nobody knows where she goes. Like I kind of like Lady Gyokyo. Like I want to know more about her because she seems to be like the oldest living person in the world of the 12 Kingdoms, maybe even older than any of the kings. Because I think it's Soryu, I think that's how you pronounce it, the king of An, and then I think it was the king of So, who are the oldest kings, like currently reigning. Like, like, the king of An is 500 years old. I think it's the king of Seoul, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 600, I think. But I think she's even older than them. And like, it's just like nobody knows anything about her before she became like the lady of Hosan. Like, they say that she was given her position by like gods, like years ago. I don't even know if Lady Gyoko is like her real name. Like, she just disappears all the time. Like I said, no one knows where she goes. And then she just shows up and she knows what has to be done. Like, at one point, the oracles were worried about Taiki and they wish that they had another Kirin on the mountain to, like, talk to him and kind of, like, show him his power, show him the powers and, like, what he can do. And, like, Lady Kyoku had been gone for a while. She had no idea what they were saying, and then she just shows back up with Keiki, like out of the blue, with to so to like help Taiki. I like her as a mystery character because you don't know what's really going on, like, and I kind of want, like I said, know more about her, but I also kind of like the mystery aspect of it too. And speaking of that, there's like four other mountains, because there's like a specific region in the center of the world, or at least like the known center of the world, where it's called the Yellow Sea. And there's like multiple different mountain ranges in here. Like there's a map. 5 mountains there. And it's not really a sea. At least I don't think it is anymore. It's the area where most of the demons live. And it's where most of the Kirin get like their sea ray. Whereas the 5 mountain ranges, Hosan is the one we like know, because since the book is set there, we know what like the kind of like the function of it is. Where it's where the Kirin are born, it's where they're raised until they pick the next king. The oracles live there, and like they all do like regular duties when they're not like with the Kirin, like laundry, cooking, cleaning, like, and it's where the king goes to get like ordained by the gods. Like they go to like the fairy, like I think it's the top of the mountain. They kind of like get blessed by the gods, and then they leave from Hosan to whatever kingdom they're the king of on like this giant like sky turtle. Yeah, it's a giant sky turtle called a gunbo, where it says it's the size of a small island. And as far as I'm aware, its only duty is to bring the king from the mountain to the kingdoms. And it's big enough that it has a small pagoda that's furnished but unoccupied, and there's enough food for the two of them on the travels. And so, other than like Hosan, they don't really talk about the other mountain ranges that are like nearby. Because I think they mentioned that they are occupied and they were given like someone to like watch over them. But they don't really mention like who is on them. Maybe like Lady Gyokuro knows because she's like the lady of Hosan, so she might also be talking to them. Like I don't think the other priestesses ever mentioned who's living there, or like what they do if they have any like special duties like Hosan does. Yeah, as I also mentioned, Keiki shows back up in this, and so he was the kirin on Hosan before Taiki, and so Lady Gyokuro takes him to Hosan to try and get him to kind of like teach Taiki about what's going on and how to use his powers, since they're like sort of like since they kind of are like the closest in age to each other. And so like the main conflict of the book, like I said, is Taiki trying to like regain his powers and try and figure out what it means to be a kirin. And so a lot of this book is like the characters like Keiki trying to explain to Taiki what's going on, but Taiki not fully like understanding what they mean, or them not being able to properly explain what's going on. Because like one of the things is like the kirin can't fully bow to someone who isn't the king, and like they can't like touch their forehead to the floor to someone who isn't the king. And so that they like explain this to Taiki, but he doesn't like really understand what it means. And so he ends up bowing to Gyosho, thinking that he somehow like failed and he chose the wrong person, but it doesn't realize that he bowed to Gyosho, like touching his head like to the ground means that without any trouble means that Gyosho is the king. And later on they try to show him that he didn't fail because they try to have him bow to the king of Anne and he can't do it and he doesn't know why. And that's the reason why. Or like telling him what the revelation is when they do pick the king. Or like knowing what the revelation is, like he thought there'd be a lot more to it than just what it was. Like he ends up becoming really good friends with Gyosho. Like he didn't want him to leave. He always wanted to like be near him. He and that was basically like the revelation, like, and like when Gyosho said he was leaving, Taiki like ran after him. Yeah, and like part of this too, they start talking about how part of the reason why he wasn't able to like fully regain his powers or like fully use them was because it was like he didn't want any of this to be true. He spent the first 10 years of his life in Japan with like his family, and then he was whisked away to this world that he really knew like nothing about. And while he seemed to like understand that he wasn't like normal, I guess, he he finally realized like this is the world he comes from. He like didn't want to believe it. Because again, he's only like 10, and like this is a hard thing for like anyone to try and realize it. Like Yoga had a hard time trying to like go throughout this world, and she was like 16, and Taiki's only a child. And so, like, they all kind of hint that he misses Japan. Like, he talks about his family a bit. He's always thinking about them. Like, he misses his mom, and so like he wants to go like back home. Well, at the same time, he seems happy at this place, and so it's like he just didn't want to like accept that this was his home now, even though he said he accepted it. I would also think it's kind of a bit of a hard thing to try and fully explain some of the stuff. Like the characters do try and explain stuff, but they do it in a way that can be easily mistaken by other people. Like, oh, they don't explain stuff. Like Taiki doesn't really talk about what's bothering him because he doesn't want to like bother anyone. And he doesn't want to make anybody like worried. And so he doesn't tell anybody what's going on. And then characters like Keiki try to explain stuff, but they do it like I said, badly, so that Taiki assumes something else. And he does apologize to Taiki later on about how he's sort of like explained stuff better to him. And like makes some sense that Taiki doesn't wanna like explain stuff that much because just like back in Japan his home life wasn't the best. He had a family, but it was his grandmother kept getting angry at him for everything. Like his younger brother kept like blaming him for getting their grandmother angry. And it was like his mother was the only one who tried to protect him, but at the same time she got really upset about the whole situation. He just didn't really like talk about stuff that much because he didn't want to make the situation worse. So when he came to Hosan, he didn't want to explain stuff to people about what's going on with him because he didn't want to make them upset because he knew they were already upset about the whole situation, about him not being able to unlock his powers, or afraid that he might not be able to like choose the king. And like I do feel bad for like I said Taiki, like he's so young being like thrown into this whole position where he's expected to kind of be an adult at this point, especially like by the end, where he ends up picking Gyosho as the king, and then he's kind of expected to help run the government, and he's a couple years younger than Anki was when Anki chose the king. Because I think Anki's supposed to be like 13 or 14, and like Kirin stop aging when they reach like maturity. But like I think Taiki stopped aging once he chose Gyosho, I think. But even then he was still so young, and people kind of like kept expecting him to have all of these responsibilities when he still has no idea what's going on. And like some of the other characters, I liked some of the other characters too. Like I liked Yoka, and Teye, who are like I said the two main oracles we meet in the story. Like the seen the most with Taiki and Teye. They were saying she's like so old that she doesn't remember like why she came up to the mountain in the first place. And then there was the Lord Gyosho, who came up to the mountain to be chosen as king. he's the one, like I said, he's the one who eventually gets picked, and he was actually like the one of the generals closest to the king, where he was part of like the royal army, and he actually seemed like a pretty decent guy. Like he's not really horrible. Like he has sort of like an arrogance about him, but he's not so arrogant that he treats other people that badly. Like he's mostly humble. Like uh he meets Risai, who's another general in like the army, but for one of the lords. And so like he doesn't treat her that badly. He actually becomes like pretty good friends with her. Like he knows her name, he knows the stuff she's done, and like her reputation. Cause like he basically gets like the highest ranked position a general could get in the army. Like I said, he basically worked closely with the king, but he doesn't treat her badly because he wasn't part of like the royal army. And like they go like hunting together later on in the book for like Sugu, which are like big like tiger creatures. And then Resize, she's actually a like really good character. I liked her. Where she's like the first person Taiki befriends when they all come on the mountain. And in the anime, she's forced by Michelle Roth, who does Rukia and Bleach, and so every time she spoke, I just kept imagining her speaking. And so she has this one beast called a Tanbo, whose name is Hien, that I like. No, it's called a Tanbo, and it's supposed to look like a large dog with wings. You can sort of see it here. You can sort of see it here in the woman kneeling this Risai. And they're supposed to be like pretty gentle creatures. And I kind of liked her relationship with Taiki. Like, well, like later on, she ends up becoming injured when they're trying to hunt Shugu, but they accidentally come across this giant, like, ancient demonic creature, and that Taiki ends up like capturing as a Sirei, and she got kind of injured. Taiki was like worried about her, but she like kept reassuring him that she's fine. And then there was what was it, Sansi, who was his Nyokai, where they're like an all female race who are like tasked in protecting Kirin when they first show up on Hosan. Like every Kirin has a Nyokai. I think that's the name they gave him in the anime. Like I don't think she talks too much. And then there was Taiki, who is the main character. Like I really liked him. Like he seemed like a really good character. Like just like a pretty like good kid. Like I think it, like he was always trying to like help people. He was like really kind and caring about like basically everyone. And I did like mostly like his journey. Like I said, I kind of wish the book could have been longer. Because it's almost like 200 pages shorter than like books 1 and 2. Now, I still really liked the Mount Hosan. Like, I think it's like a pretty cool location. Because, like, it's so, like, unconnected by the other kingdoms. Like, people really only go there for if they want to be chosen by the Kirin. So, like, no one really goes there outside of that, except... Yeah, I don't think anybody really ever goes there. Except for to be chosen by the Kirin. As far as I know, unless it's like they either they wanna become like one of the oracles, or if they have very like specific business with the oracles, I'm guessing. Yeah, they never like really talk about meeting anyone outside of that. Yeah, in Mount Hosan, it's actually like supposed to be designed in a way to try and protect the kirin, where like the pathways get so confusing that really only like the oracles know how to navigate them. And there's a whole bunch of like ponds and like rivers and like buildings scattered throughout the place. Like anybody who tries to get into the mountain can get lost easily without someone with them who knows how to navigate it. And like I kind of wish we saw more of the priestesses, because like Teye and Yoka are really like the only two that get shown a lot. It's like they don't really mention the others' names a lot or really like talk about them a lot. Like the main characters we kind of get out Taiki, Sansi, Teye, Yoka, and then Gyoso and Risai. So I kind of wish that Taiki, he's supposed to be like pretty close to the priestesses, but he mostly spends his time with like Yoka and Teye. So it would have been cool if he at least talked to at least like more of them, like outside them. Like I don't expect like all of them to get names, like these detailed like backstories or anything like that. Because there's supposed to be quite a lot of oracles living at Mount Hosan. I don't know if they mentioned how many, but there's like bringing up like there's like one or two of them besides the two main ones. Yeah, and we also don't spend that much time in Thai. Like they go to the very end, but like they spend maybe like two chapters there, and like I said, they don't really mention anyone there by name who might want to try and stop Gyoso and Taiki and cause him to go missing. Like there is some information about Tai, like I think it's like the farming isn't that great, but they have like jam mines all around the country, and so they sell a whole bunch of like the gems and minerals that these like mines and springs produce for money, and get like stuff like grain that way. And they talk about how like the previous king had like so many musicians in the capital, like the castle, that each group played like a different song in each room, and you could hear it in like the main chamber where he held court. I kind of wish they'd spend at least like one more chapter in Thai of just I don't know, like Taiki walking around the castle and seeing what it was like, or something like that. But yeah. Oh, and they also mention, I almost forgot it, but they also mention that Taiki is what's known as a koki, or like a black-haired kirin. Because most kirin are born like with like blonde hair, but they're very rarely are they born with like different hair colors, like, and it's supposed to be a sign of like good luck or something. And there's a, like I mentioned before, like this one ancient creature, like this ancient demon that was like living inside of this cave. It's like this shapeshifter type of thing. That apparently they're so rare. Oh, they're just so hardly seen that nobody believes that they even existed. Like until they came across this one in the cave. So there was like the question: how many more creatures like this are there in the world? Because like they don't mention too much, and apparently it's like to the point they're so powerful that like Kirin never take them on as a series, and also aren't like so rare that like no one knows they exist. Because they must be living somewhere. Like, are they still living in the 12 Kingdoms, or have they moved on somewhere else? Since people think that the 12 Kingdoms are like the only countries in this world, are there other places these beings are living and they all just like moved there and now nobody knows that they exist because they're not living here anymore? I did like more of the world building in this, like we got to see more of like the mountain where like the kirin live and like kind of like how they capture sea ray and stuff like the process of how like the people come into the mountain when like the kirin flags show up and stuff like the rituals that the people go through to try and become like the king and how everything kind of like that works. And kind of see more of how like the kirin's powers might work and everything. So I kind of like that. Kind of like seeing how like the priestesses live and everything. But yeah, I think that's about all of my thoughts on this. I love this. I think it's just I kind of wanted more because it's just this short book. Peace.